All right, let's jump right into this. We often hear about how tough it is for small-scale farmers. But what if the answer wasn't just, better tractors or more rain? What if it's about completely changing the economic rules of the game they're forced to play? Well, today we're looking at a super powerful model that does exactly that, the agricultural cooperative.
It's a huge question, right? It really gets to the heart of our entire food system. These folks work incredibly hard to feed all of us, yet so many of them are just stuck in this endless cycle of debt and barely scraping by. So, what is actually going on?
So, to really get a handle on this, let's make it personal. We're going to follow the journey of a farmer we'll call Meng Zhuan. His story? Well, it's the story of millions, and it's the perfect way to see the core problem we're about to unpack. So here's the deal with Meng Wanhuan. Like so many others, he's out there on his own. And let me tell you, in the modern agricultural market, being alone means you're vulnerable. Let's break down what that really feels like. Just try to imagine the sheer frustration here. When it's time to sell, Mengzhan's path is just depressingly predictable. He gets his crop harvested, but with no real way to store it or transport it himself, a clock starts ticking, loudly. He's got to sell, and he's got to sell now to whoever shows up at his farm gate. This forces him to take whatever price they offer, which, surprise, surprise, is almost always way below what his crop is actually worth. And this right here, this is the economic term for the trap he's in. Mangwan is what's called a price taker. He has zero leverage, absolutely no power to negotiate. The market tells him what the price is, not the other way around. He's basically just a passenger in his own business. But what if Meng Huan didn't have to be a lone wolf? This is where the whole game changes. This is where the Agricultural Producers Cooperative, or APC for short, steps into the picture. It's an idea designed to completely flip that power dynamic on its head. Okay, so what is an APC? Let's be clear, it's not a charity. It's a real business. But, and this is the crucial part, it's a business that's owned and controlled by the farmers themselves. Its entire goal isn't to make a buck for some faraway investors. It's to make life better for its actual members. And that purpose right there leads to a massive fundamental difference. Your typical corporation has one main job: make as much profit as possible for its shareholders. A cooperative, on the other hand, is built from the ground up to create the most value and provide the best services for the people inside the organization, the farmers. Their whole reason for being is just different. So that all sounds great in theory, right? But how do they actually pull it off? How does just banding together give them this kind of power? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Well, a co-op basically wears two hats, and it wears them really well. First, it acts as a big collective producer. All the farmers pool their harvest together, which lets them afford things like big processing mills. This adds value and creates a consistent, high-quality product. Second, it acts as their intermediary, giving them the combined muscle to negotiate much better prices and cutting down on costs for everybody. And by playing both of these roles, the co-op starts to fix a market that's frankly broken for the little guy. You know that situation where there's only one big buyer in town who can set whatever lowball price they want? That's called a monopsony. Well, the co-op's collective power pushes back. Or when traders hide information about market prices, the co-op becomes an info hub for everyone. And of course, they get economies of scale, buying supplies in bulk and sharing expensive stuff like tractors. Okay, now we're getting to what might be the single biggest difference of all. If you really want to understand cooperatives, you have to follow the money. And the key is that we're not talking about profit, we're talking about surplus. So in a normal corporation, right, the money that's left over after all the bills are paid is called profit. It's seen as the reward for the investors who risked their money. And very often, that cash gets whisked away, right, out of the local town and into big financial centers. Now, in a cooperative, that exact same leftover money is called a net surplus. But this isn't just a different word. It's a completely different philosophy. It's not a reward for owning capital. It's seen as savings, basically an overpayment that belongs to the members who generated it, and it is designed to stay put right there in the community. So who gets that money? In a corporation, it's paid out in dividends. The more shares you own, the more money you invested, the bigger your check. But in a co-op, the surplus is returned as a patronage refund. And this is based on participation. The more you actually use the co-op, the more rice you mill, for instance, the more you get back. It rewards your work, not just your wealth. So what does this look like in the real world? This rice mill example makes it perfectly clear. Check this out.
The private mill makes an extra $10,000. That profit gets split between 5 wealthy investors. Okay, now look at the cooperative mill. It makes the same $10,000, but that surplus gets divided among 500 small-scale farmers, all based on how much rice they each brought in. The impact on that local town is just night and day. And that local impact isn't just a one-time thing. It creates these incredible ripple effects that can lift up an entire community, not just the individual farmers. This creates what some economists call a sticky economy, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of wealth being created and then sucked out of the community, the cooperative model makes that wealth stick around and circulate right where it can do the most good. Here's how it works. That patronage refund goes right into the farmer's pocket. They use it to buy seeds at the local supply store or groceries downtown. The co-op itself often reinvests a chunk of that surplus back into the town, maybe through a scholarship fund or community projects. It creates this amazing self-reinforcing cycle of local growth. So let's circle all the way back to our guy Meng Huan. Remember where he started? On his own, he was a price taker, just stuck, barely getting by. But inside the co-op, he becomes a market influencer. He's not just getting paid for his raw crop anymore. He's getting a piece of the entire value chain, the milling, the branding, the whole shebang. The result? He goes from subsistence to shared prosperity. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this fundamental shift in thinking. You don't join a co-op to get rich quick. You participate to secure your livelihood, to save on your costs, and, most importantly, to build something valuable and lasting for your entire community. And that leaves us with a really powerful final thought. This isn't just a story about farming. It's a blueprint for keeping wealth local, for empowering people, and for building fairer economies from the ground up. So you have to ask yourself, what would our world look like if more of it worked this way?